Hey y'all, Carolina Tony here.
And Debbie.
Today we are in Deer Lodge, Montana, and we are here at the old Montana prison. Yes. Started in what year?
1907, I believe.
I thought it was 1872.
Oh, wait a minute. 1871.
1871.
Yes.
There you go. I actually got to straighten Debbie out.
Oh.
Well, today we're going to tour the old prison here and learn a little bit about it. If you're not a subscriber, be sure to subscribe. Also, hit the bell, yes, and it's over in that corner of the intro.
So you'll be notified of any new videos.
Exactly. Debbie says I forget that a lot. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Quit rambling on with all this.
The prison's most glaring need was a stone wall to take the place of the board fence, which was becoming old and rotten in places and which had been repeatedly repaired. There was no money for construction. Already in 1890, the State Board of Prison Commissioners decided to contract the entire prison operations to Messrs. Conley and Mateague for a rate of 70 cents per capita per diem because of lack of funds to operate the facility. Warden Frank Conley proposed to the commissioners that he be allowed to use convict labor to build the wall. Owing to almost depleted treasury, the commissioners agreed. Construction of the wall began in the spring of 1893 using stone quarried 3 miles west of Garrison and convict labor supervised by the superintendent of construction. The wall was completed in the fall of 1894.
One of the guards. Inmate Harry Edwards Evans, convicted of voluntary manslaughter in 1971, deliberate homicide. King of Kings and Lord of Lords, correctional officers, administrative staff often humored inmates as long as their behavior did not disrupt daily operations or security. Diversity in everyday prison life was important, and allowance of certain kinds of individualism was viewed as a healthy distraction within the prison population. Such was the case of inmate Evans, a devout believer in his own form of religion. A correctional officer stated, Evans slipped into his own world. Believing that he was a messenger of God, he claimed to speak with God and believed himself to be an earthly manifestation of Jesus Christ. This is where they would come when they would visit with family behind the fence. It's a job placement office. So when you got out of prison, you could find somewhere to work. Since founding the Montana State Prison, changes in management philosophy also reflected in prison dress. Utility and economy has always been concerns, as well as the influence of dress on an inmate's self-image. As Deputy Warden John Robinson escorted the men to a meeting with Warden Conley, he was attacked, beaten, and stabbed. Before prison guards could quell the outbreak, Robinson was killed and Connolly was badly wounded. Hayes and Rock were later executed for their roles in the death of Warden Robinson. It's a booking room. The inmates. This is something that you wouldn't expect to see in a prison, a hospital infant crib, possibly used when females were incarcerated in the early 1900s. A lot of this is contraband. This is things that the prisoners wasn't supposed to have. Homemade weapons, shivs, knives, things to hurt people, razor on the end of a toothbrush. National Guard shrapnel found at the prison break. Here's something here. Inmate produced sulfur bomb made from compressed match heads and wrapped in foil tobacco pouch. Check these shoes out. With concrete soles, inmates who were thought to be potential escapees were made to wear these shoes. Each shoe weighed about 20 pounds. A softball smoking kit.
On this site in 1908, George Rock was executed by hanging. A year later, William Hayes met a similar fate. Rock and Hayes killed Deputy Warden John Robinson and severely wounded Warden Frank Connolly in an escape attempt. Connolly surprised the inmates after they had murdered Robinson and fired on them with his .41 caliber revolver. Both inmates were hit, but the ammunition was defective, and Connolly was obliged to subdue the murderous men by clubbing them with the revolver. As both Rock and Hayes were armed with knives, Connolly suffered numerous knife wounds which required 103 stitches. Rock and Hayes were executed by unusual jerk-up scaffold utilizing the drop of a 300-pound weight, which was supposed to break their necks. But the device failed to break their necks, and death was by strangulation.
This is called the Siberian Prison. Come on in, let me show you around. Sometimes prisoners will request that they be put in isolation, and this is extreme isolation. Appears to be about maybe 6 by 8. And when you're locked up in here, nobody can get to you. But hey, believe me, in prison, if they want you, they can get you. And there were other isolation cells all the way up in this tower. The 1912 Sailhouse was constructed in 11 months by prison labor. These are the individual cells, bunk beds, toilets, sink, and a cabinet. Here are the cells. There's a convict right there. Over 200 cells in this particular block. It appears to be 1, 2, 3, 4 stories. And all these doors could be controlled by one lever down at the end outside of the cell block. Some more cell blocks over here.
In 1918, at age 40, Paul, aka Turkey Pete, Eichner, was sentenced to life in prison for murder. A model prisoner, he was assigned to tend to the prison turkeys. As the years passed, reality slipped away from him. One day a man stopped to admire the turkeys, and Eitner sold the man the entire prison flock for 25 cents apiece. This ended Eitner's farming days, but marked the beginning of his new fantasy career as an entrepreneur and philanthropist. The prison administration humored Eitner and allowed him to have printed checks from the prison print shop.
You've often heard the term the hole. Well, this is the hole. Let's go see what the hole is. Read this. The hole was reserved for obstinate inmates after other disciplinary measures proved inadequate. Bread and water were issued twice a day. An inmate was checked on 3 times a day. There was no light in the cells except for a peephole through the doors. The lights outside the cells were turned off except when the inmates were checked and issued bread and water. Every 3 days in, inmates were given a full hot meal. So, Debbie just closed the door on me. I'm in the hole. It's pretty dark, and of course the lights outside, this would be the only light that you would see just while you were being fed bread and water. Here are the showers. And this is where the term comes from, don't drop the soap. You can imagine where all these criminals were in here taking a shower at the same time. This is a situation asking for bad results, I guess. All these showers would be turned on at the same time. The guards control the temperatures, hot and cold, and depending on how the guard was feeling, you may be getting a cold shower or a hot shower. This was a schoolroom as well as a chapel. This place in the wall right here, this was a gun port. And during the riot and the hostage, the press was brought in so they could talk to the inmates through this gun port. Before the church was there, it was the bakery. Here's the dining hall where the inmates would eat. And here's some photographs of the dining hall from around 1950. This would have been the inmate craft area and the TV room from around the 1960s. Now, can you imagine inmates sitting in these chairs watching TV through that little 12-inch TV? Hey, you're a prisoner, don't ask for much. This is called the tunnel. An armed guard was posted in the tunnel to oversee inmate populations during the meals. From 1932, when this building was constructed, until 1960, when a new dining hall was constructed next to the theater, all meals at the prison were served in the basement. And here's a tunnel.
So this would be where the press came in to talk to the prisoners.
Yes, the press during the riots would come in here and they would talk to the prisoners through the gun port. And here's the gun port right here. Here is another gun port. This appears to be in the theater. A photograph of the Mes Hall before the riot in 1959. In the 1959 riot, 2 of the inmates, they had killed Deputy Warden Ted Roth. They took 19 prisoners. Well, they held up in the tower there, and the National Guardsman came in and shot a bazooka right through that top window. You see in the photograph right there, if you look, you see the bricks missing. It stunned them long enough for them to go in and capture them. This was the 1907 through 1959 women's prison, maximum security. In 1878, the first woman was incarcerated in Montana. She was originally held in the same cell in house, the same cell house as men, on the third floor of the federal building. When joined by another female in 1879, it soon became apparent that a separate women's facility was necessary. So this was a visiting booth. On this side is where the visitors would come, and the inmates would be in there. So this is the women's side. Muriel Murphy, convicted murderess at 15. She doesn't look like she could harm a fly.
She was the youngest woman in Montana at the time to be convicted of first-degree murder and to be incarcerated in the Montana State Prison. She was sentenced to life in prison at age 15.
So this is where the inmates would stay that were suicidal, and this slide bar on the wall, they would be handcuffed to it, and they would get bread and water and
3 slices of bread and a quart of water twice a day, and a hot meal every third day.
At the prison museum, you can buy clothing here, and how about this? That is so cool. Let's see how much a pair of prison pants will cost you. $29 if you're small. Well, that is going to do it for our trip to the old Montana prison here in Deer Lodge?
Deer Lodge, Montana.
Exactly. I know I wouldn't want to be here.
No.
Even though Debbie thinks sometimes I might need to stay here for a day or two.
Yeah, get an attitude adjustment.
Yeah. Well, I hope you've have enjoyed our visit here. I hope you've learned a lot. We certainly did. And if you did enjoy this video, be sure to give us a big old thumbs up, and be sure to share this video with your family and friends. But until next time,
y'all have a good day.